In this video, I'm going to give you guys my first impressions of Blackburn's new Elite Outpost Bikepacking bag. So that includes a frame bag, a handlebar harness, and of course, a seat bag, which you will notice has a very interesting attachment method. Since it's been snowing and really icy, I really haven't had a chance to put these bags through a test, but I've been sitting on them for a while. Spring is still a long time away. So I'm gonna give you guys my first impressions, and we're gonna actually install these bags. They install pretty differently from your typical bike packing bags, and it was actually a little bit confusing at first, but they do bring some interesting solutions to a couple of problems with bike packing bags. So first off, one big change with the Elite version of their bike packing bags is that everything is waterproof. Waterproof material. This is actually pretty cool. They come in various sizes now, so you can really dial in the fit to your bike. I believe this is the medium long. So there is a stubby version and a longer version. So depending on, how much interior triangle room you have in your bike, you can get almost a near custom fit. Let's talk really quickly about their handlebar harness. And this is pretty interesting. Their previous model, not too much of a fan of. It used kind of a click fix system, plastic mounting hardware. This is all metal now. Metal clamping hinges here. This bracket here is all metal. This is kind of a soft, semi-rigid plastic. It's got Velcro on here to kind of help capture the bag. The dry bag is waterproof, and a nice touch is that it does have a bleed valve so you can let air out. Looking at the seams where the material meets on all the bags, I would say it's approaching Ortlieb quality. The Ortlieb stuff does seem to be a little bit denser, although this is a little bit denser still than the waterproof Apidura bag. So it kind of sits between the Apidura and the Ortlieb in terms of the material quality. The seams themselves, again, not having put it through the ringer, are pretty good. There's no gaps, there's no places where there's goo that's uneven or anything. So just, ostensibly looking at it, so far so good. And one reason I wanted to make this more kind of an installation video is because they do some actually really interesting things to install these bags to the bike. That you'll see in a second. For example, in the seat bag, you will notice when you get this, it comes with this huge metal plate. And if you were just to pick it up at the store, you'd be like, there's no way I want to put this around my seat post, because this would ding up your seat post. And you'd be right, because there's a whole kind of method to installing this depending on whether you're putting on a standard seat post or with a dropper post. So all sorts of metal bits that I'll get to in the installation, but big broad strokes, again, removable seat bag design. So there is kind of a sling system. This part is fairly rigid. This part, pretty rigid. So if you have issues with bag wag and seat bag droopage, I think this is pretty promising. Let's look at the dry bag itself. It's tapered. There's a Velcro on the top that kind of gets captured in the sling. A little bungee capture cord, and a bleed valve. So both the seat bag and the handlebar roll have a bleed valve. Super convenient. One thing I do like about the seat bag is if you look at the nose, it's actually fairly blunt, which I think is a better use of the space there, because typically if you've got a seat bag and it comes to a really narrow point, it's hard to find things that will fill that gap efficiently. But because this is a little bit more blunt, a little bit more square, I think it'll pack overall a bit more efficiently. Now let's go install this stuff. All right, you guys, this is the bike I'm gonna be installing this stuff on, and I am switching to the GoPro cam for this. The frame bag is the most straightforward to attach. It's got these straps that you can adjust, wraps around the frame, nothing new there. It's got 3 sets of zippers. There is a large main compartment zipper here, and you'll notice a false bottom, so you can actually stack things, organize them in different heights, or just use it all by itself. But typically recommended that you leave that in there so it keeps the bag from bulging too much. On the other side, another really narrow kind of waterproof pocket here. And you'll notice here there are also some little sleeves here to stick things like wrappers or gels or goos. You might be wondering what this stuff is. This is intended so that you can when you put a bladder in here, the hose will come through and you can feed it up the bike, or you can use it for cable management with electronics and what have you. So like I said, what's cool about their frame bags this year, or this Elite system, is that there are a ton of options. There's long and short options for the various sizes, so you can almost get a custom fit. So let's start here. Most of the straps on, so far a pretty good fit. I was a little concerned that these up front would not be long enough, but these are indeed longer. Move things over just a touch. I was able to make it work. I had to move everything up forward just a little bit, so you can see the strap is a little bit too short. I could potentially swap this longer one and put it there for better coverage, but generally pretty good. Holds it nice and rigid, bag's not flopping around. So this is the frame bag. All right, so this is where things get kind of interesting with their handlebar harness and seat bag. Interesting hardware choices. So as you can see here, this is all aluminum, adjustable via the Allen bolts here. This is aluminum. This is pretty hard, gets a little bit more flexible near the edges, and it's got these straps, which we'll get to in a second. So let's just put this guy on. So you guys can see why I love this ratcheting tool. So I was able to mount it on. Took a little bit of doing. So this metal part acts as a standoff, so you can kind of maneuver it around cables. There is some adjustability to it. I'm not messing around with it in this video because I think this is going to work. Let's put on the bag. So Velcro, that kind of holds it in place. This is where things get interesting. Attached to the bottom is this webbing strap. Ultimately, it's going to hold the entire thing up. And the way that works is with these guys. So as you guys know, one of the big challenges of these harness things is preventing rotation of the harness. You'll see there are these straps that are loose on themselves, and the idea is the idea with these straps is they go around your handlebar like so, and then they pull on the other strap that is attached to the bottom of the harness. Then apologies that this looks a little bit like ass, because right now I just have a down jacket in here. But you can see one of the interesting advantages of this is that you have a built-in anti-rotational system, if you will, with these straps. So not only do they act to secure the bag, but they also act to kind of arrest any kind of potential rotation of the system. Cool design. Again, first look, have not put this on any rough trails because it's been snowing and there's no rough trails to ride. You know, if you want a removable dry bag system, this is, the dry bag's really nice. It's got a bleed valve. In terms of harnesses, I think this is actually pretty clever. I'm kind of stoked on this design. I think I actually prefer it to the Salsa Anything Cradle. I think the Anything Cradle pushes everything out a little bit too far, and you can achieve that with this. There is ability to kind of adjust the angle. So if you want this a little bit further out, you can do that, but you can also bring it in, which is nice. Whereas the Anything Cradle just relies on the tension and the clamping strength of this hinging part, this actually still has kind of a fail-safe with this strap system. So yeah, so that's the handlebar roll. So now let's handle putting on the seat bag. And for this, I actually recommend removing the saddle. So I'm gonna just go do that. Okay guys, so this is the seat bag. I'm gonna be completely honest, when I first got it, I was hella confused because this doesn't look friendly to seat posts. If you were thinking that you would just kind of put this around the seat post like a regular seat bag, Doesn't make sense, right? Because this is super rigid. This is going to ding up whatever seat post you have. So that's not actually how you attach this. This is like radically different from your typical seat bag. Has some advantages, but also a little bit more fiddly to put on. So it comes with a bunch of hardware that you may or may not use depending on the type of seat post you have. So let's remove this, and you can see what I'm talking about here. One thing I'm not a fan of is these bolts that they use to attach the plates together. Is a small, like size 3 Allen, and I feel like these bolt heads are, because they are so small, you know, if you've got a tool that sucks, or if these bolts don't use a very good metal, then they're super easy to round out. I don't see why they couldn't have used a 4 or at least a 5, but like a 3. I don't know. So all that to say that when you do go to remove stuff and install it, be careful that you don't round out the bolt head. You get this wing plate that goes over your saddle rail like so, and depending on whether you use a dropper post or not, that will dictate whether you use this long curve thing. This is for the dropper post, I'm not using that, or you just use this flat piece. And this is how it works. This is how it's supposed to work. So wing plate goes over there. This flat plate will sandwich that, and then you bolt, then you secure this whole, what do you call this? This whole cradle system with these super tiny bolts. And yeah, so a little bit more fiddly than your typical seat bag. So the challenge is holding the wing piece and this flat piece and the cradle together as you install it all. So I usually just try to get one side started, and that'll kind of keep the whole hot mess from falling apart. There you go. All right, so we got it on. So you can see wing piece, bracket, the cradle system itself, and then this attaches to the seat post. So I'm gonna put this on the bike and see how it works. This goes in there. And this is where this comes into play. You take this strap, goes over like that. It catches around this guy, and this whole contraption gets pulled up like so. Going to adjust it a little bit. And there you go. So what's cool is there's no way that this thing is drooping to hit the tire there. So if you have seat bags and that's been a problem in the past, this will solve that. And also this thing is pretty rigid. There's some like slight movement, but compared to your typical seat bag where there isn't kind of a structured cradle or anything, this thing is going to be pretty solid. I'm actually really stoked on this because as a shorter rider, I have lots of problems with the seat bag hitting the top of the tire, and it looks like the seat bag works great for shorter riders, provided you can get it to fit and you have some kind of seat post to play with. Yeah, all the bags are installed on the bike. I think the frame bag was a pretty straightforward proposition. You just kind of have to fine tune the strappage, move things around, make sure the straps can reach all the tubes it needs to. The handlebar harness, pretty straightforward with the hinging clamps. I love that unique touch of using the retaining strap also as a anti-rotational device. Really curious to take that out on a rough trail and see how that performs, if it works like it should in theory. The seat bag, as you guys saw, a little bit more on the fiddlier side to install. It's not as simple as just, you know, straps over the saddle rail. It's got this whole like winged plate and other flat plates depending on how what kind of seat post you're using on. Ultimately though, I do think that it's going to be a more superior design than their previous seat bag, than lots of just kind of soft seat bags I've played with in the past. My biggest complaint was the 3mm bolt heads that they use for that system. I feel like because it is a tight space, there's lots of potential to strip it out because you're coming in at an off angle if you've got a really long tool. So I sort of wish that they used something a little bit more beefier of a bolt head, so like a 4 or 5 or a Torx. That said, once it's on, It looks really promising. Probably the most rigid seat bag system I've used personally. I've not used the Porcelain Rocket Mr. Fusion one, so I can't compare that directly. But compared to their previous seat bag, that one was a lot more floppy. This one is a lot more rigid, and I think by far a more superior bag. So it's a first look, again, just installing it, feeling it, comparing it to other bags I've used in the past. So far so good. So good job, Blackburn. Definitely think it's an upgrade. Can't say yet whether their unique innovations in attaching it to the bike will work as promised, but we'll see. I might actually take the seat bag with us to California and see how that handles the gravel riding we do out there. What do you guys think? Have you guys used the new Blackburn Elite stuff? Has it held up over time? What do you think of all these innovative attachment systems? Let me know in the comments, and as always, if you like content like this, consider supporting the channel via the PayPal and Patreon or buying a simple t-shirt. It keeps the YouTube channel independent. I'm not getting paid by Blackburn, so I can say what I want, and it's all because of you guys. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep the supple side down.